Time to pull up a chair. We've got another great story for you today in the rLounge. What do you do when your fiancé lets her parents roast you like a rotisserie chicken on your wedding day? Send her a thank you card, cancel the honeymoon, and go sip cocktails with your dignity still intact. Today in the rLounge, the silence is deafening. Wife let her parents humiliate me at our wedding. I walked out and now she's alone, and I'm happily divorced. I'm horribly confused and in a pathetic situation. I, 33 male, walked out of my wedding 3 days ago and haven't heard from my wife, Jazz, 29 female, since then. It's all because of the way my in-laws, Andy and Susan, acted at the ceremony, treating me and my parents like crap. It wasn't the first time they had gotten on my nerves, but it was certainly going to be the last, especially since my wife sided with them. She had mostly been a supportive person, and this was the first time she ever did that, but her absence and lack of effort to reach out had told me more than enough. Jazz's parents never thought I was good enough for their daughter financially. After learning that I worked as an animator, they began talking to me like I was beneath them. According to them, Jazz should have found a guy with a proper job, just like her sisters. The elder one was married to a real estate businessman, and the other to an engineer. I was not surprised that they had high hopes for Jazz, but having high hopes and actually going about humiliating others for their profession is two different things. Her mother even tried convincing me to change my profession several times, but I stood my ground and she called me an obstinate fool. I hadn't bothered explaining how intricate and profitable my job could be either, after seeing how stubborn-minded they really were. To them, animation was a schoolboy hobby, and for individuals who weren't ready to grow up and do meaningful things with their lives. A childish hobby was what her father called it. The first time I went to her place was at her mother's 55th birthday. I had never felt so much out of place in my life. At the dinner table, everyone took turns to say a word about Susan. When it was my turn, I was fumbling because that was the first time I had met her, and it wasn't pleasant at all for me to let out a good vibe, yet I said some generic good words. She wasn't pleased to hear me speak. She started talking to someone else while I was still talking. Didn't even thank me or acknowledge it. Behaved as if I was non-existent. Jazz's brother-in-laws were kind to me, spoke to me like a buddy, but her parents gave me cold shoulders, which was really embarrassing. I confronted her about it and she agreed that her folks were mean to me. She assured me they would come along, just need some time to understand me. I realized boomer parents don't get new age professions, so I let it slide. Since then, I kept my distance from them. I made it clear to Jazz that her parents don't like me and are not going to bend myself to impress them. I'll try to be civil with them in unavoidable situations where I have to meet them. Nothing more than that. One such event was our engagement. Holy crap. Jazz called them to invite, and they made a huge fuss over getting the invitation just a week prior. They wanted to be involved in the preparations. Her father was like, "How dare Dan and Mike, his two other son-in-laws, make it? You can't expect them to drop everything and show up. They're busy people, having real jobs." Jazz informed him that we were having a small party with just the parents and a few very close friends. Boy, they wanted a big party and to invite us all of their extended family, including Jazz's sisters with their husbands and Jazz's aunts and uncles. The list was endless. Let's just say they wanted to add 15 more people from their end. Her mother said if we didn't have the money for a big party, they could fund it. Jazz declined the offer, saying it wasn't about money. We want a private ceremony. Susan still insisted on having Jazz's sisters and their husbands, as adding 4 more people to the guest list won't hurt. I said it wasn't about 4 more people. It's about being fair. I'm not inviting my siblings, and she shouldn't either. I'm as close to my brothers and sisters as she is to hers. When we didn't oblige, her parents didn't show up either. Jazz told me that they were busy and had prior plans, which they couldn't shift as we had invited them last minute. I wondered what was so important with skipping their daughter's engagement. The truth came out months later when we went for Jazz's grandmother's funeral. Dan and Mike congratulated me on the engagement, on which her parents also let out, half-heartedly wishing. Out of courtesy, I said, "I wish you guys could attend," to which her father asserted, "Oh, we had better things to do with our time." I promptly asked, "And what was that?" He was caught for the moment, and then said, "Nothing. We sipped a chilled beer and watched football." Jazz's mother swiftly interrupted and excused themselves, saying they had to meet others. I confronted Jazz about it, and she admitted knowing that her parents had deliberately skipped the engagement. She said she hid it from me in order to protect my feelings. I knew this would attract a lot of comments that I should have broken up. Let me tell you, this was just a couple of instances in 4 years. Apart from her parents' thing, Jazz was an amazing person. We barely fought over anything. She had 0 tantrums. She was the most loving and secure person I've ever met. However, things took a different turn during the wedding planning. I had told Jazz that I wanted a small wedding with a few guests, but she insisted on having a big wedding, as in have her aunts and uncles and her sisters with their husbands. She made a point that we did a small engagement, so we should have this one. I was somehow convinced to have them because everyone wants to have their siblings by their side on their big day. I invited my siblings too. Besides, she opted to share 70% of the food costs of the wedding as she had more guests. It seemed a fair deal. The rest of the preparations went smooth. However, I was dreading what would happen on the wedding, and let me tell you guys, some of my worst fears came true that day. I introduced her parents to mine, and the vibe was chilling. Andy and Susan barely let out a smile. However, when they learned that my parents are professors, and brother is into aviation space, and my sister is a teacher, they came back to my parents and were like, "But why is this one turned out to be the black sheep?" My parents firmly said that they have raised independent children who are capable enough to make their life decisions, and they don't interfere in our lives. This should have been a tight slap on Andy and Susan, but they're shameless beings. Andy went about telling everyone that I wanted a small wedding because we couldn't afford a big one. His words, "I told him I have a big family and everyone has to be present. Get a loan, borrow, do whatever it takes to have a big one." It stung, right? Hold on, there are others. My brother overheard him saying, "I told him I'm gonna bail you out only in an extreme situation. That I have to do it for my daughter's sake." Susan was not far from being evil. She let out a poison disguised in courtesy, said, "Take good care of my daughter. You got a lot more as a package. Got my precious girl and all the good things that came with her, and most importantly us, who would always have her back." I know I'm not as rich as their other sons-in-law, but I'm capable of raising and taking care of a family of my own. While I was still dealing with these, Andy stood up to give a speech about how he and his wife would do their best to accept the love their daughter had for me, despite me falling far below their expectations. He chuckled and laughed and tried to be hilarious, only it wasn't. It fell flat, and no one except he and Susan found it funny. He also talked about making sure that my children would have a good education. My mom had walked out after that, and my father looked like he was in pain, even with a small smile on his face. When I looked at Jazz, she was completely calm. I'd attempted to stand, but she held me back, telling me to keep it together since it was our wedding. It was when Susan added that she hoped my children would be respectable, ambitious people that I lost my temper. It was too obvious that I was being made fun of. I couldn't stand it anymore. I grabbed the microphone to say a few words. I'd thanked them for their speeches before introducing them to my side of the family, reminding everyone that Susan was a household wife who had never once thought of working to earn for herself, while Andy used to own a photocopying business, but shut it down after 2 of his daughters got married to rich men. My words were direct enough to do the math. Jazz tried to stop me, but I shrugged her off, held the mic firmly, and moved to the aisle. I said I understand the importance of self-worth and how shameful it is to leech on others. I'm sure Andy and Susan can relate to this because, unfortunately, they have to be dependent on their daughters. Folks, I assure you that I work hard enough to take care of my family and very well. Also, don't hesitate to let me know my share. I know, like your other sons-in-laws, I'll have to pay tax for marrying your daughter. Don't worry, I can manage it. I could see them breathing fire. Jazz was screaming at me to stop. She started hurling abuses at me when my dad tried to calm her down. She lashed out at him to stay out of the matters that don't concern him. That did it for me. She didn't say a word when my parents and I were being looked down on, but when they got a taste of their own medicine, she lost her temper. Not once had I yelled at her parents, though they definitely deserved to be yelled at. I put the mic down, loosened my tie, and walked out. My mom was standing outside. I hugged her for a minute and said I was leaving. I was going to preserve my self-respect no matter the cost. I came back to the apartment waiting for Jazz to show up. When she didn't, even not at night, I thought she was too angry or her family had taken her with them. But today is the 3rd day and still no sign of hers. Not a single call or text from her. I don't know about wedding mishaps, but this isn't a good way to start a marriage. Jazz is most likely with her parents, and they're the last people I want to see right now. My parents called me yesterday, applauding me for standing up for myself. They were equally concerned about my marriage. Said that if I trust Jazz, I should contact her and have her back, but also ensure to cut off her family, especially her parents, if I want a peaceful life. I said I loved and trusted her to the core, and would have definitely tried to have her back, but now I didn't see the point. I've known her for years, and if she's ignoring me on purpose, it either means she wants nothing more to do with me, or she's punishing me. Either way, it's conclusive. If that's going to be the outcome of a marriage that has barely begun, then so be it. What do you think? Do I listen to my parents and reach out once? Or do I start making moves to put an end to my relationship once and for all? It's not just about her family. She didn't have your back when it mattered most. And now 3 days later, She's still gone and hasn't even reached out? That says a lot. You were there, willing to walk through fire for her, and she couldn't even pick up the phone. I get that it's hard to let go after everything you've built together, but marriage is supposed to be a partnership. If she can't stand with you when her family treats you like garbage, how are you supposed to trust her to stand with you when life gets hard? I don't think you're wrong for considering walking away. Update 1. So, I decided to end my marriage. It was inevitable and most certainly hurtful. She's the first woman I'd ever thought of spending my life with. She stayed with me when I decided to quit my finance executive job and venture into animation, spending all my saved money so I'd purchase the best equipment for work. She took care of me when I was broke, despite me not wanting her to. I made sure to ignore her horrible parents' remarks because of all that we had been through together. However, her outburst at the wedding and the way she ghosted me after that were something that shattered me. She clearly doesn't value me or feel the need to resolve this, and I was tired of waiting. She ignored me like we weren't married then. There was no way I was begging her to come back. If she didn't want to sort things out, it was fine by me. I consulted my lawyer as I wasn't sure about the process. Some of my friends said I might need an annulment because we didn't stay together after the marriage. However, it came out that our situation falls beyond the annulment conditions, so I had to go through a regular divorce process. It took a month for the lawyer to send her the papers. I was expecting some movement from her side post that, and I got one. Instead of Jazz, her parents were at my door to pack her bags. They looked happier than ever. I was like, I'll spare you the trouble. Her stuff is already in the storage. Go get them. They took and left without any conversation. I guess they had learned their lesson at the wedding that they can't get away after messing up with me. Soon after that, Jazz signed the papers and the process got started. Since it's consensual and we barely have any assets to share, just some savings in a joint account we had created a year before our wedding, I'm hoping it will be smooth. The meaty part of the update is Mike, Jazz's brother-in-law. He's the engineer guy married to her middle sister, Hannah. He reached out, thanking me. Apparently my wedding drama turns out to be beneficial for him. He was surprised to learn that Andy and Susan were surviving on their daughter's allowance. He had no clue that his wife had been withdrawing thousands of dollars every month and passing it on to her parents. Hannah had access to their joint account. The guy was slogging his butt for 10 hours a day to build a comfortable life for his family, trusted his wife with the finances, and she was shipping it to her narcissistic, entitled parents. After my speech at the wedding, he asked Hannah if there was any merit to my claim. She said I was spitting out of spite, and it was completely untrue. Then he went back and scanned his account and found this out. When he asked Hannah about those transactions, she initially tried to brush it off as a random expenditure. But he pestered, and she broke down and confessed it was a loan, and her parents had promised to return it. She sobbed that Andy had to shut his store during COVID, and since then, he hasn't been able to get back on his feet, so she's helping them for the time being. He was like, "You can't give a monthly loan, and what's Andy's plan about returning it? Is he starting a business or seeking a job? How is he going to earn his living?" She had no answer. He put a stop to all this by adding himself as the primary owner of the joint account, blocked her access to his card, and threatened her with extreme consequences if she ever spends a penny on them behind his back. After he was done ranting, I chuckled that at least there was someone who benefited from my wedding mishap, and we laughed over it. He said he had no idea that her parents were so cruel to me because they were very sweet to him, and why wouldn't they be? He earns really well. He suggested we inform Dan, Jazz's elder sister's husband, about this, in case he too is in the dark. I politely refused to be indulged in any of their family matters. I said I was out of the family and don't want to get in this mess again. If he wasn't aware, my speech would have enlightened him as well. Mike still went ahead and asked him if he knew. He said his wife had informed him that Andy and Susan needed financial help right from the beginning of their marriage, and he was okay about it. He earned enough, and sparing a few grand didn't hurt for him. She was married before COVID, so Andy's shop getting shut has nothing to do with their financial condition. They were always striving on their daughter's allowances. Mike texts me every now and then. I won't say we are friends, but he seemed to be a decent guy. Last week, he called me again saying his marriage had been rocky because Hannah has been fighting and nagging about not being able to fund her parents. He said he's going soft on her because they're expecting soon. I thank my stars that I'm able to get rid of this nonsense before it was too late. The divorce will be finalized soon and I'll be a free man, officially. Update 2. If we were married, today would have been our first anniversary, and to date, Jazz's attitude towards the divorce shocks me every time I still think about it. She completely ghosted me. Mike informed me that she was doing fine, which made me let go faster than I normally would have. Divorce is settled, and I'd spent the last 10 or 11 months working harder than I ever had. I started a small animation business, which I had wanted to do for a very long time. I wanted to quit my job and focus full-time on my business, but due to wedding commitments and to provide security to my ex-wife, I couldn't take that risk. When everything was over, I felt I had nothing to lose, so I quit my job and focused 100% on my business. Jazz wanted to go to Hawaii for our honeymoon, and I had saved up to fulfill her dreams. After the wedding fiasco, I pulled out this money, put together with the amount from the savings account, and kickstarted my business from the guest bedroom. I'd gotten together a small group, created paid courses online, widened my knowledge, and now it's getting me a steady flow of income. It takes up all my time though, but it's definitely worth it. Mike and I remained in touch throughout, and we also hang out sometimes. It turns out that he's seriously considering separation as he cannot trust his wife anymore. In the last few months, she continued to siphon off the money, and when he complained, she played her pregnancy and postpartum cards. Her parents would also jump in to lecture him on how he should be an emotionally supportive husband. He kept quiet until his son was born, but now he could no longer take it. He's already living separately and talking to a lawyer. He's just worried that his son won't be able to have a normal family. I didn't tell him what to do, though. He's a grown man and is capable of making decisions for himself. I sometimes wonder how Andy and Susan could be so selfish that they are okay to ruin their daughters' marriages for their benefit. Update 3. Here's the new update. Mike didn't go through with the divorce. Jazz intervened just at the right time and knocked sense into Hannah. She showed her the true picture of her parents. After my wedding mishap, Andy and Susan took Jazz home and apparently manipulated her against me. She was hurt that I humiliated her parents in front of everyone. Yes, finance is a soft nerve for them, and my speech uncovered the truth not only for Mike, but for other family members too. Andy and Susan cried and howled for days because they were so badly humiliated, just because they took small loans from their daughters. They were like, "We raised our girls, sacrificed everything for them for 3 decades, and now when we're in financial troubles, can't we expect our children to bail us out for some time? Is it so evil that we were called out in public and humiliated?" This emotional manipulation worked, and Jazz ghosted me, which ultimately led to our divorce. However, soon after that, she saw through their act when they asked her to pay the rent for living with them. She swiftly moved out to live with her friend before getting her own place. Her mother constantly reminded her not to repeat her mistakes and this time find someone suitable for herself. By suitable, she meant rich, who would become their next piggy bank. Jazz snapped and cut her off. Apparently, she confessed to Hannah and Mike that she wanted to reach out to me and apologize, but she was too ashamed of herself and knew I won't budge, so she silently remained aside. So for now, Jazz and Hannah have cut off Andy and Susan financially. Mike and Hannah are moving states to get rid of all the toxicity. Even after knowing all this, I don't plan to get back with Jazz because her remorse cannot undo the damage her parents and she have caused. We are better off being separate. That's all for now. If anything new regarding this subject happens, and I hope there won't be, I'll definitely leave an update. I think your decision not to reconcile is the right one. Some things can't be undone, even with regret. She made her choices, and while she may see the truth now, the damage was already done. You gave your all, and she left you in silence. What are your thoughts on all of this? Let us know in the comments. And thank you for joining us today in the rLounge. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. See you next time. And please put your chair back where you found it.